Today, in part 2 of the series on scaling your consulting business past $2 million, we're shifting from the problem to the solution. Specifically, I'm going to show you why the top 5% of consulting firms succeed where everyone else stalls, and what they do fundamentally differently from the rest. This isn't theory. These are the patterns I've observed consistently across successful firms over more than 25 years working in this space, where I've personally started, grown and sold 3 consulting firms and have helped dozens of other consultants who are stuck at a growth barrier break through to achieve higher impact with more clients and greater personal success and freedom at the same time. In part 1, we covered the 5 critical mistakes that keep 94% of consulting firms trapped: short-term focus, reactive marketing, ineffective delegation, lack of control, and trying to do it all yourself. If you haven't watched that yet, go back and start there. The link is in the description below. You might also like to check out my book called Cracking the Code, which is linked to in the description. This book is written specifically for owners of consulting and other professional service firms with a team of up to 20 people whose growth has plateaued, showing you how to break free from being stuck in the center of your business and enabling you to grow your business at the strategic level. Check that out in the description below. Throughout this video, I'm going to give you specific action points that you can act on right now to grow your firm successfully without working harder, before in part 3, where we go even deeper into the implementation. Let's get into it and start with a true story that's a valuable example of what can be done. Back in 1964, a small consulting firm was started in Boston with a handful of consultants, almost no clients at all, and no name recognition whatsoever. The market they were entering into was completely dominated by the giants of the profession like McKinsey, Booz Allen Hamilton and others, firms with decades of history, massive networks and more resources than this little startup could have dreamed of. Most people in that position would have played it safe, tried to copy what the big firms were doing, gone down the traditional route and tapped their networks and looked for referrals. And if they had, they probably would have ended up competing on price and hustling for scraps. Bruce Henderson went against the grain. Instead of operating traditionally, he asked a question nobody else in consulting was asking. How can our ideas sell for us? He started writing not the traditional brochures, not sales letters, but instead he wrote short, sharp, thought-provoking essays that he then mailed out directly to targeted business executives across America. Each one offered a genuinely new way to think about competition, about growth and strategy. And in one of those essays, he introduced a simple framework for thinking about a company's product portfolio. You probably know it today as the BCG Growth Share Matrix. That single idea came from a different way of thinking than the norm, and it put Boston Consulting Group on the global map. Today, BCG is one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world. So what does that tell us about the top 5% of consulting firms that scale past that survival ceiling? It tells us that growth doesn't start with tactics. It starts with a fundamental shift in how you think. And that's exactly what we're covering today. Before we look at what the top 5% do right, we need to understand something important about why most firms stay stuck, because it goes deeper than the 5 mistakes we covered last time. Here's what I've observed across hundreds of consulting firms. The root cause of the growth ceiling is almost never external. It's not the market, it's not the competition, it's not even the internal strategy. It comes down to mindset. Specifically, it's how the owners see themselves and their role in the business. Most consulting firm owners see themselves as one of 3 things. The first is as a practitioner, someone who's great at delivering the work. as self-employed, someone who's essentially created their own job. Then at a higher level, there is someone who's built a team around their expertise, but still works as a business operator, someone who runs the business day to day with hands-on most of what happens. But very few make it to the third level, transitioning to what I call the business orchestrator. And here's why that distinction matters so much. You cannot build a scalable business from an operator mindset. You can work harder, you can get busier, you can even grow your revenue for a while, but at some point the business hits a ceiling because you are the ceiling. The operator's default response to any challenge is to work harder. And that conditioning runs deep. It started in school. Work harder to get better grades. At university, work harder to get the best results. In your first job, work harder to get the promotion. By the time you start your own business, working harder is so deeply ingrained that it feels like the only real answer. But it's not about working harder. And it's not even just about working smarter. It's about thinking differently, shifting from the operator paradigm to the orchestrator paradigm, thinking strategically and proactively instead of tactically and reactively. So here's action point number 1. Ask yourself honestly, are you operating as a practitioner, an operator, or an orchestrator in your business right now? Write it down. That honest answer is your starting point. And if you want to learn more about that, check out my book, Cracking the Code. So what does the orchestrator mindset actually look like in practice? Let me walk you through the 5 things that distinguish the top 5% from everyone else. The first thing is that they build around a clear long-term vision, and that vision isn't about them. This is where most consulting firm owners get it wrong when they do think about vision. They frame it around what they want: financial independence, personal freedom, and eventual exit. And those are legitimate goals, but here's the brutal truth. Nobody else is going to get out of bed inspired by your goal of getting rich and not having to work. The firms at scale, the ones that attract great clients and great talent, are built around a vision that's bigger than the owner, a vision that answers the question, what change do we want to make in the world for the people we serve? I learned this lesson the hard way in my own firm. About 6 months into my last business, I was struggling to attract the right consultants to join my team. My mentor asked me about my vision and mission, and I was proud. I could quote them verbatim. Her response, boring. No wonder no one wants to join you. That was a turning point for me. I rebuilt the vision around what we could achieve for our clients, not what I wanted for myself. The result, revenue doubled for 3 years in a row after that. The right people started showing up because they wanted to be part of something that mattered. So action point number 2 is to write down your current vision statement. Now, ask yourself, does this vision inspire your ideal clients? Would your best team members find this compelling enough to stay, even if they got a higher salary offer from someone else? If your answer is no, rewrite it. Here's the second thing the top 5% do. They build a proactive, systematic marketing engine, not a referral-dependent pipeline. Think about how Bruce Henderson went to market. He didn't wait for introductions. He didn't hope that existing clients would refer their friends. He created a system. His Perspective series consistently put powerful ideas in front of the right executives and built his firm's authority. And that generated inbound interest at scale. That's what a marketing system looks like. Not campaigns when things get quiet, not a LinkedIn post once a month, a deliberate, consistent engine that positions your firm as the authority in your space and keeps your ideal clients engaged over time. The firms at scale have figured out that authority attracts premium clients, and authority is built through consistent, valuable intellectual output, not self-promotion, not ads, but ideas. published, and shared consistently. So action point number 3 is to map out your current client acquisition sources. What percentage comes from referrals? What percentage comes from a system that you control? If referrals account for more than 60% of your new business, you don't have a growth strategy, you have a dependency. Take a note of that gap. Let's look at the third distinguishing factor of the top 5%, and that is that they build their businesses around what is most important to their clients, not their own self-interest. Marketing guru Jay Abraham puts it this way: most business owners are in love with their business or their product when they should be in love with their clients. Here's the practical test of how well you know them and what's important to them. Can you describe your ideal client in such specific detail that you could spot them in a room? Do you understand their biggest challenges in the same language they would use to describe it? Have you designed your entire way of working to be an exact match for what they need? Most consulting firm owners can't answer yes to all 3 of those questions. And that's where the friction in client acquisition comes from. When you understand your clients better than they understand themselves, when your firm is clearly and demonstrably built around solving their most pressing problem, you stop having to convince people to hire you. They start seeking you out. So here's action point number 4. Write a 1-paragraph description of your single ideal client type, not just a demographic profile, but a deep psychographic picture. What keeps them up at night? What have they already tried? What does success look like for them? If you can't do this in vivid, specific terms, this is your most urgent priority. Let's look at the 4th shift. The top 5% build teams that work without them through clarity, empowerment, and accountability. The most common complaint I hear from consulting firm owners trying to grow is, you just can't get good people these days. But here's what I've observed. The firms that are scaling aren't working with fundamentally different people. They are creating a fundamentally different environment. Jim Collins famously said, you need to get the right people on the bus. But equally important is what happens once they're on the bus. Do they know where they're going? Do they understand their role in getting it there? Are they empowered to make decisions without running everything through you? The orchestrator builds systems and structures that allow good people to do great work without constant supervision. That means clear role descriptions, clear performance expectations, a mission compelling enough that people are motivated to deliver, not just managed into it. The operator, by contrast, hires reactively, usually in a panic when things get too busy, and then throws the new person into the deep end and eventually wonders why it didn't all work out. The team ends up depending on the owner just as much as the owner depends on the team. So action point number 5 is, for each key person in your business right now, ask yourself, do they have a clear written description of what success in their role looks like? Do they have the authority to make decisions that their role requires? Or are you the bottleneck for decisions that shouldn't need you? If so, that's your next thing to fix. The 5th thing the top 5% do is that they install control systems that give them real visibility over performance. Bruce Henderson didn't build BCG by guessing. He knew exactly what was working and what wasn't, and where to focus. The top consulting firms have what I call a business cockpit. They have dashboards, KPIs, financial reports, and operational metrics that tell them at a glance whether their business is on track or not. Most operators, by contrast, run on gut feel, and some are even proud of it. But as the statistics show, as we covered in part 1, gut feel is not a reliable growth strategy. You can't manage what you can't measure, and you can't scale what you can't manage. So action point number 6 is list the 3 most important performance indicators in your business right now. The numbers that, if they're moving in the right direction, would tell you the business is healthy. If you can't name them immediately, you've got a problem, and that's what you need to focus on. Now, here's where I want to address something directly, because I know some of you are thinking, this all sounds great, but I've tried to change in the past, but it didn't stick. And I hear this often, and I understand it, because here's the truth. You can't change your identity just by doing different things. You can read every business book ever written. You can attend every seminar. You can create new systems and hire new people. But if your underlying mindset is still that of an operator, you'll keep making operator decisions. And those decisions will keep pulling you back to the center of everything. Real change happens at the identity level first, and identity is shaped by environment. Jim Rohn said it clearly. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you spend your time networking with other operators, people at your level facing the same challenges, reinforcing the same beliefs, the operator mindset gets stronger, not weaker. The consulting firm owners who make the transition to orchestrator almost always point to the same catalyst. They started spending time with people who were already operating at the level they wanted to reach. People who talked about their business differently. They made decisions differently. They saw opportunities differently. That's not an accident. It's a deliberate choice. So here's action point number 7. Take a look at the 5 people you spend the most time with professionally. Are they operators or are they orchestrators? Are they at your level or are they ahead of you? If you're the most successful person in your peer group, you're in the wrong peer group. I want to be real with you about timing because it matters. The consulting market is shifting. Clients are more informed, more discerning, and more demanding than ever before. The firms that are winning are the ones who position themselves as the authority. They have systems, they have clarity. They have built the businesses that attract the right clients instead of randomly chasing any client. The window to build that positioning is not unlimited. Every month you spend operating reactively is a month your competitors, the ones who are already making this shift, are widening the gap. I've seen what happens when a firm owner waits too long. The revenue plateau becomes a revenue decline. The stress becomes a health issue. The passion for work becomes a resentment. And at that point, making the changes required is so much harder. The owners who make the transition successfully are the ones who decide, while the business is still alive, still viable, still has momentum, that they're going to do things differently. Not tomorrow, now. If you scored yourself on the 5 mistakes in part 1 and came up short, now is the time to take that seriously. In part 3, I'm going to take you through the practical 7-step system that the top 5% use to implement everything we've talked about today. Vision, objective, strategy, execution, teamwork, accountability. We're going to look at exactly how you apply each of those elements to your consulting firm in the right sequence, in a way that builds on itself. So you're not just doing the right things, but doing them in the right order. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see at this stage is owners who understand that change is needed and immediately start systemizing everything they're currently doing, and all they end up doing is locking in their inefficiencies. The order matters enormously, and part 3 is where we get into that. But right now, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on part 3 when it comes up, and drop a comment below. Tell me which of these 5 shifts was most urgent in your business right now. I read every response and it shapes the content I create. And if this series is resonating with you and you'd like to talk about what this transformation could look like in your specific firm, the link in the description below will take you to a page where you can schedule a call with me. Or if you like, get hold of my book, Cracking the Code. That will take you through what we're talking about here at a deeper level. I'll see you in part 3, where I unpack the 7-step system that you need to put each of these success elements into action. Check that out here.